George Allan Smith IV, age 26, disappeared from the Royal Caribbean cruise ship Brilliance of the Seas during his honeymoon with wife Jennifer Hagel Smith on July 4th or 5th of 2005. No body was ever recovered. Theories range from a tragic accident, possibly him stumbling overboard due to intoxication, to foul play. George's family strongly believes he was murdered.
Underwear, alcohol, syphilis, murder, forbidden.
Good morning. This is a
Yes,
special edition of Forbidden, Saturday morning edition.
I've got my morning baggage. I just woke up. I've got a pot of tea. Time
Nice.
for Yeah. How about you? How are you doing? It's still morning for you as well.
Yeah, it is still morning, but I went ahead and got a THC drink, and it's mixed with it's called Upward, and it's a pink lemonade. It's very refreshing, and it also has caffeine or something in it because it says it's also an energy drink. So I need it to power through this rainy day.
All right. I'm not familiar with this one.
It's interesting because I was going to do a different story, and I'm going to um, refer to it at the end of this story. But the other one, once I started researching it, I was like, oh, there was a dude that like got killed on a cruise ship, and I remembered this story, so I thought it would be a little more interesting because the other one is getting a lot of press right now. So that's why I went this route.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited
Yes.
slash terrified to hear about what was his name?
George
George.
Allan Smith the Fourth.
Okay. Well, everyone and Amanda, welcome to Forbidden, the podcast where we discuss the dark, the disgusting, and the disgraceful in our unmentionables. That's right, we've slipped into something more comfortable and hope you are doing the same. I'm Blake Roberts,
And I'm Amanda Kamada.
and this is Sunk, our limited series diving deep into the wild tales, legendary shipwrecks, and mysteries lost beneath the waves. Or as you said last time, between the waves.
Between the waves.
Between the sheets.
Between the sheets.
Tell us about what you're wearing, and I think you've already shared what you're drinking, but what are you wearing?
Yeah, I am wearing a new bra from I think it's a French company called Cédelar, Cedelar, and it's a little bralette, which it's kind of a pale pink and matcha color, which I am really enjoying.
Yeah, it's really cute.
Thank you. And what are you wearing today? Pray tell.
I'm wearing a new shirt that I got on clearance for $21. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Also a floral motif. And I'm wearing swim briefs because I will be getting in the pool after this.
Well, I wish I could get into the pool after this, but it's raining, so I think my pool day is shot today.
Yeah.
Well, before we get into this, I will give you my sources. So, my sources today are All That's Interesting or Interesting, The Guardian, Wikipedia, the Connecticut Post, the Stamford Advocate, Stamford, good old Stamford, Connecticut.
It's the best place in the world.
Oh, yeah, we love it so much. Sorry, Stanford. People magazine, and it was also covered in various news magazines like 48 Hours. I believe there was a Dateline about it. It got pretty widespread coverage when it happened, but this has been 2005, so that's 20 years ago. So it doesn't surprise me that maybe this isn't ringing a bell for you.
Right.
Yeah. But before we get into the story itself, I wanted to talk a little bit about maritime law because cruise ships seem to be a really interesting place to take people if you want them to be murdered and or disappear. And much of that has to do with maritime law. So what is maritime law, you ask? Great question, Blake. Maritime law can get tricky because it depends on where the ship is and what kind of law we're actually talking about. So here's a little breakdown. So, jurisdictions at sea. First of all, there are territorial waters. So, territorial waters are anywhere within 0 to 12 nautical miles from a shore of a country. So, if you're within 12 nautical miles of a country's coastline, that country's laws apply just like you're on their land. So, crimes, disputes, accidents fall under that nation's coastal jurisdiction. So, let's say something happens to me on a boat within 5 nautical miles of the United States, then that jurisdiction will be over that crime that was committed. Then you hit after 12 nautical miles to 24 nautical miles, you hit what's called the contiguous zone. So that's the coastal nation still has limited powers. So customs, immigration, pollution control, but not full criminal jurisdiction. So once you get 12 miles out, you may have a crime committed against you, and the country that you sailed from or whatever may not have any jurisdiction over the crime that was committed. So you're basically very close to being beyond those 12 to 24 nautical miles, which is international waters.
Okay.
So outside of territorial waters, the ship is generally governed by the laws of the flag state, which is the country where the ship is registered. So if a ship is registered in the Bahamas, the Bahamian law applies. That is why many cruise lines register ships in countries like Panama, Liberia, or the Bahamas because they have favorable regulations when it comes to laws aboard a cruise ship, which is quite interesting. There are exceptions if crimes involve US citizens, like this case that we're going to talk about today. The FBI can claim jurisdiction even if it happened in international waters, provided the cruise departed from or returns to a US port. Now, the FBI did get involved with this one. And what's interesting to me is that it was not sailing from the United States. It was actually a Mediterranean cruise, and we'll get into that in a moment. But the FBI did get involved, even though it didn't sail from the waters of the United States. And I believe this particular ship was registered in the Bahamas. So, who was George Smith IV, and what happened that evening? George Allan Smith IV was born October 3rd of 1978. He was an American man who disappeared overboard from the Royal Caribbean International cruise ship MS Brilliance of the Seas in July of 2005 under suspicious circumstances. He was from Connecticut, from a well-off Connecticut family. His father, George Smith III, owned a well-known liquor store in Greenwich. And if anyone knows anything about Connecticut, we all know that Greenwich is a very, very affluent area. So he was from an affluent area, an affluent family who basically owned a liquor store. Liquor stores can be very lucrative, by the way, apparently.
They are if we live near them.
Exactly. Total Wine and More. It's like our second home. He was described by friends as being outgoing, adventurous, and charismatic. He was newly married at the time to Jennifer Hagel Smith. They had just wed 11 days earlier in Newport, Rhode Island. So basically, this is a newlywed man from Connecticut. They had just gotten married in Rhode Island 11 days before, and they were on their honeymoon, sailing the Mediterranean. And their cruise was going from Barcelona to Greece to Turkey. And the night that this happened was the night between July 4th and 5th of 2005.
Okay.
Yeah. So a little bit of the timeline here. So July 4th in the evening around 8:30 p.m., George and his new wife, Jennifer, dined together on the ship in the ship's dining room. So if you've ever been on cruises before, there are usually two main seatings for dinner, and one is usually 6 or 6:30, and one is 8 or 8:30. So my guess is that they had the late dining option. Around sometime between 9 and 11 p.m. that night, which my guess is if they were eating dinner at 8:30, this was probably more like 10 o'clock or so, they headed to the ship's casino, where they were seen drinking and gambling. Witnesses noted they were affectionate at first, but they later started to argue. So late night, after midnight on July 5th, what could possibly happen?
On a
you
cruise
know,
ship and you've been drinking and you're
being
fighting, what could go wrong?
Yes, when you've been to the casino. So this sounds like something that could happen to me, but late night. So they started gambling at the casino. They were, gambling. They were drinking. They probably started around 10 o'clock. So at approximately 12:30ish a.m. on after midnight on July 5th, Jennifer left the casino visibly intoxicated by herself. Crew members later found her passed out in a hallway. That does sound like me, doesn't it?
It does sound, it rings a bell, Amanda.
I know. Whenever I was reading this, I was like, okay, this is this is all plausible
And relatable.
and relatable. Yes. So crew members found her passed out in a hallway of the boat and escorted her back to her cabin. She claims to have no memory after leaving the casino, which
I,
I also can,
yes, yes,
understand.
I believe that.
Look, been there. Around 1 a.m., George was still seen drinking in the casino and socializing with other passengers, including 4 young men, later nicknamed, quote, the Russians by media through at least, and some of them or most of them were from Brooklyn, New York.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is at 1 o'clock in the morning. He's seen, with this group of men who are called the Russians at 1 o'clock. And between 3 and 4 a.m., George and the group of men are seen returning to his cabin. Witnesses later reported loud noises, arguing, and at least one passenger claims they heard someone say, quote, good night, George, end quote. And so that was between 3 and 4 a.m., but and these are all approximate time frames. Between 4 and 4:30 a.m., neighbors in nearby cabins report hearing loud thuds and furniture moving in the Smith's cabin. Some describe the sounds like a struggle. Between 4:30 and 5 o'clock in the morning, a large blood smear/stain appeared on the ship's metal canopy directly beneath George and Jennifer's balcony. At 8 o'clock a.m., so that was between 4:30 and 5 a.m., but it wasn't until 8 o'clock that a passenger reports the blood to ship staff, and crew responds and begins what they do, cleaning. They started cleaning the blood off before they even realized that this guy is off the ship. So later that morning, Jennifer wakes up in another cabin where she had been found after being found in the hall and learns that her husband is missing. Okay, so they thought that they had taken her back to her cabin, but really they took her back to another cabin. How she ended up in someone else's cabin, I don't know. And it never really said who else's cabin she ended up in.
What?
Yes. Yes. So George's body was never found despite sea searches. Blood evidence strongly suggested he went overboard from his balcony. The FBI investigated, but no charges were filed. Theories are split between a tragic accident, a fall while he was intoxicated, foul play, robbery, assault, or a cover up by those last seen with him. So, who were the main suspects or persons of interest in this? Because this guy is now like disappeared off the ship somewhere in the Mediterranean. He's gone. There's blood outside of his balcony. So, main suspects or persons of interest first are the Russian Americans, and that was the group from Brooklyn. 4 young men that he was last seen with, One was Josh Askin. He was American. He was from California. And three men of Russian American background from Brooklyn: Rusty Kaufman, Zachary Rosenberg, and Gregory Rosenberg. Now, why this was suspicious is witnesses saw him partying with them after she went to bed and or was carried back to the wrong cabin, whatever that was. Never got into that heavily on the story, but that seems a little suspicious that somebody on their honeymoon would wake up in somebody else's cabin. But,
Yes.
stranger things have happened, I'm sure. She was drunk. She needed some sex. She went to someone else's place and got it, maybe. People
Whoops.
cheat on their honeymoon, I think Mario Lopez did that, or was it his bachelor party or something like that in his first marriage, and his wife found out about it and divorced or had the marriage annulled like immediately. This is like
Really?
years and years ago. Yeah.
AC Slater.
AC Slater. Bad man. Okay, so they saw him partying with this group. Multiple reports suggest they escorted him back to his cabin around 4 a.m. Again, other passengers overheard one of them say "Goodnight, George," interpreted by some to be sinister. There were inconsistent statements given to investigators as to if or when they went to his room. And they were briefly detained and questioned by Turkish authorities because they were closer to Turkey at the time when the ship docked the next morning, but were released. So even though he was with all of these men, they went back to his cabin. All of this, hoopla happened supposedly that people were talking about, sounds that were coming from the cabin, but
If you remove
they
the
were
context,
released.
it sounds like a good time.
I know. The context of him falling overboard and blood being around.
Yes.
So the next is his wife, Jennifer Hagel Smith. While she was not considered a direct suspect, some suspicions fell on her early because she was passed out in the hallway that night and then escorted to another cabin by crew. She claimed she had no memory of what happened after leaving the casino. Some speculated she may know more or was covering for someone, but the FBI never named her as a suspect. And she was later accepted a settlement with Royal Caribbean, which his family saw as an undermining of the pursuit of justice. So she got, I believe, around $1 to $1.5 million from Royal Caribbean from this happening to her now late husband, who, by the way, was never found.
Mm-hmm.
And then the cruise ship crew or cruise line mishandling, Royal Caribbean was accused of mishandling evidence. There was a blood stain on the canopy that was cleaned before a thorough investigation was done. The cabin that they were in was not sealed off immediately, and there were delays in reporting the entire event to authorities.
Wow.
Yeah, while not suspects by, per se in the murder sense, their actions fueled theories of a cover up to protect the cruise line's reputation, of
Right.
safety reputation, basically.
Yeah.
Other theories: some believe George may have fallen overboard by accident, drunk, possibly trying to climb between balconies. I'm like, I don't think that. I could see him falling off of a balcony being drunk, but I don't think he would be crawling between balconies. That doesn't seem plausible to me.
It doesn't really make sense.
I think it was the Russians.
Yeah.
Others, including his family, believe he was robbed, beaten, and thrown overboard by the young men last with him, because the FBI did look into financial motives with regards to this. He had significant cash and casino winnings that night, but the money was never recovered. And so, does that mean that they went back to his room, robbed him, threw him overboard, or did all of his money just go overboard with him when he fell?
Right.
So, yeah, no formal charges were ever brought against anyone. None. The FBI eventually closed the case without indictments, and George's family still publicly maintains that he was murdered. The aftermath of this, the Smith family fought legal battles with both Royal Caribbean and his former wife over settlements and transparency. So this caused a bit of, a rift between the families because they saw her as being culpable in some way, maybe just leaving him behind drunk. I'm sure there's a lot of blame being placed on stuff like that. But you know what?
Yeah.
I've left people drunk places before. I
And
mean,
I've been left drunk places before.
yes.
I get it. Like, you're having a
Yeah,
shitty time together. You need to have some
right.
time apart.
Yeah, and if you're gonna go and, like, she passed out, clearly she was wasted, not
Yeah.
in her right fucking mind if she passed out and ended up in another cabin that night. Still don't know what happened there. But like I said, she, accepted a financial settlement in 2006 which his family initially opposed, but later negotiated amendments to. The case received extensive media coverage. Again, Dateline NBC, 48 Hours, Court TV, and even a fictionalized Lifetime movie, Deadly Honeymoon, was made about this story, of course. And again, no one has ever been charged in connection with his disappearance, nor was his body ever found.
Mm.
So, what happened to his wife? What is known about her today? As of her Wikipedia entry, she remarried a financial analyst named Jeff Agnay in 2009. And a 2012 feature in Greenwich Magazine describes her as now remarried with a child and living in Fairfield, Connecticut. Beyond those details, her remarriage, living in Fairfield, and having at least one child, there's no widely published information about her current whereabouts or personal life. She's maintained a pretty low profile since the legal proceedings following George Smith's disappearance.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah, yeah. But she
Mm.
did marry a financial analyst, so I bet, she's living in Greenwich or whatever, so it sounds like she did pretty well, and she got that
Yeah.
$1.5 million settlement, so I don't
Yeah.
know.
He's doing
Um,
better than we are.
yes, exactly. But a little bit that's the story of George Smith's disappearance in the Mediterranean. But one story that's been talked about a lot lately, though not a newlywed in the sense, this is like another high profile cruise disappearance that happened in 1998, and it's Amy Lynn Bradley. She vanished from the Rhapsody of the Seas in the Caribbean under suspicious circumstances, and her disappearance remains unsolved and unresolved, with numerous unconfirmed sightings and theories ranging from foul play to human trafficking. And you can follow her story on Netflix. It's
Mm.
called, quote, Amy Bradley is Missing. It's a gripping three-part Netflix documentary that premiered on July 16th of 2025. So this is very recent, and that's why I was actually
Mm.
going to do this story on her, but I was like, there's a three-part Netflix series out. Let me cover somebody else who was killed. But basically, what that series covers is it investigates the mysterious 1998 disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley, a 23-year-old from Virginia who vanished during a family cruise aboard the Rhapsody of the Seas. It explores several theories from accidental drowning, suicide, and abduction to sex trafficking while spotlighting the enduring grief and hope of Amy's family. So I
Mm.
think that one would be one to watch on Netflix. Um,
Yeah, I've
yeah,
seen that on there, but I've not watched it yet.
yeah, yeah. I haven't watched it either. I really want to like sit down when I'm focused and watch it because like cruise line crime has always just fascinated me
Mhm.
because there are so many people who take these cruises who don't realize that a lot of shit happens, and not just murder. Like there's a lot of sexual assaults that happen on cruise ships. There are people who obviously fall overboard and or jump, intentionally or not intentionally, like George Smith, more than likely. And or this Amy gal. Seems like there are a lot of different theories on what could have happened to her, because I think that it was one of those situations where they went to a cabin and she was just gone. And that's the thing, is these cruise ships are so big, and you're drunk as fuck on these things. Like, half the people, or probably more than that, there are unlimited drink packages that you can buy. It's just a fucking shit show.
What else is there to do?
Yeah, exactly. So, um, I've always, I've heard people joke a lot about, like, if you want to get rid of somebody, take them on a cruise, because
Hmm.
anything can happen. And I think I'm fascinated too by the whole maritime law situation. Because if you're in the middle of the sea, who is going to really prosecute, for what happened? If it's not caught on like video or something like that, somebody blatantly murdering someone. But in 2005, there's much less video of what would have, like, placed around like a cruise ship than there would be, I from my guess, today. But I
Yeah,
kind of wonder if cruise lines have actually upped their security, or if it's still kind of shady in that regard.
right. Yeah. Are there security cameras on? I mean, I'm sure there are, like, within, like, the.
I think that there are within like the common areas. But I don't
Yeah,
know, like, within the hallways, it seems like it would be illegal for them to put them in rooms, because then they could watch you.
yeah.
Like,
That's kind of kinky.
yeah, which is, a little crazy. Um, I was on a cruise ship once, and I befriended the head of security, who was this really hot Israeli guy. I may have made out with him, I'm not sure, but he was he was no more than that, no more than that. I didn't end up in his cabin.
That's too bad.
Yeah, but he was the head of security for the cruise ship. I'm sure he's probably wasn't supposed to be fraternizing with the guests, but
And how old were you at the time?
mm, I would say probably in my 20s.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was gonna say, like, were you like 15? Because that could, you know,
No, but
maritime law. Maritime law.
I smoked my first joint on a cruise ship when I was 15. I
Yeah.
did. I did. I met a guy from Florida who basically was, I told him that I was 17 years old. I was actually 15. And he said he was like 19, which I believed him. I don't know, like, why he would lie about being 19 or whatever, cuz he could, at the time, he could drink on the boat, because back then you could drink on the boats if you were 18. Now you have to be 21. And anyway, I befriended him and smoked my first joint on the front of a cruise ship in the middle of the Caribbean. So I guess I have committed a crime on a ship before, because I'm sure that was illegal to be smoking pot on a ship.
Yes, probably.
Yes. And I was 15. So there
If
you go.
people can get away with murder on a cruise, then I'm sure you didn't have much to worry about.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Although I did see someone, like, and it was I want to say it was someone in law enforcement or something like that, recently, like, went on a cruise in Miami, and he got caught with a bunch of Molly that he was trying to sneak in on the cruise, in, like, I want to say it was like Skittles packages or something like that. And got caught. Yeah, going on a cruise. Can't take the Molly on the cruise. Gotta leave that behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you've never been on a cruise, right?
Oh, I've been on lots of cruises.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, remember I went to Hawaii
Oh, that's right. I
with Marco?
completely forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was last year. Um,
So
not
what are
like a
your
well,
what
I
are your
shouldn't say a
thoughts?
lot.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on, like, crime and cruises? Like, can you see how it would be easy to commit a crime on a cruise ship?
Oh yeah, especially if you're in a private cabin
Yeah.
with a balcony.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, that kid just fell off the cruise ship not too long ago, just like climbing
Yeah,
up on something and just fell off. So I'm not saying that this guy didn't fall off the boat. It could have happened if he was drunk as hell, like
yeah,
if his wife were as drunk as she was, then his dad owned a liquor store too. My guess is these were some good timers. It'd probably be like me and you going on a cruise together,
right.
except we wouldn't get into an argument.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I mean,
Would we be hanging out with 4 Russian dudes?
yes,
Maybe.
yes. The answer is yes.
So, I mean,
We have to take turns with the cabin.
exactly, or I could end up in another cabin just like she did.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, yeah, some rando cabin.
Did you see? So, we just recently wrapped our Crimes of Fashion series.
Mhm.
And did you see Giorgio Armani died this past week?
I did, I did, and I was watching, the news this morning, and they had, I guess, a correspondent there, NBC News was there, and I think his body is lying in state, or his casket is lying in state right now, in somewhere in Milan. And they showed Donatella Versace getting out of a car to go pay her respects. I think they're having a service for him maybe sometime this weekend or something like that, a
Yeah,
private service. But I didn't realize he was that old.
yeah, 91.
He looked really good for 91, for
He
sure.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah. It said he had been unwell for a while, but I mean, when you're 91, aren't you just unwell all the time?
I think you hit a certain age and you're just like, at least I'm always going to be unwell because I'm always going to have to find a reason to like just be hopped up on Valium or whatever, just
Yeah.
to like get through life.
Um, so I'm switching gears real quick because when you were telling that story and you were going through the overview of July 2005,
Mhm.
I always want to see what music was out. I googled and hit songs in July 2005. Amanda were Mariah Carey's "We Belong Together," "Holla Back," "Girl" by Gwen Stefani, and Kelly Clarkson's "Behind These Hazel Eyes."
Oh. I gotta say, that's not a very strong list of music there. You know, I guess it's just none of it is my taste.
Well, then how about "Don't Funk with My Heart" by the Black Eyed Peas? Because that was also a hit song at that time.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like I've just listened to the same music for the last 25 or 30 years. Like,
And it was none of those.
it was not any of this. Yes. No, none of
Yeah.
that. Oh, man. Well, where can people continue to listen to these fun stories, and uplifting things? I'm
Yes.
not saying don't go on a cruise. I will go on a cruise anytime. I actually think a Mediterranean cruise would be really interesting because I think it would be much more like fun than like schlepping through Europe on foot or going like through trains and all that kind of stuff because you have to drag your luggage with you everywhere. And I don't know if you've never have you ever gone to Europe and traveled like that? Like I went to Italy and I went to like 6 different cities and it was amazing. I was there for like 2 weeks or whatever, but, like, you would get to your hotel. As soon as you got unpacked, you were there for, like, a day or 2, and then you have to repack everything, schlep on a train to go, to the next spot to do it again. And I feel like getting on a cruise ship in the Mediterranean would be so nice because you could go to all of these different places. You normally spend a day there, which is normally what you need in most cities at max, like honestly, unless you're just wanting to truly explore the city. And if that's the case, then you could like make that final city, your destination city and hang out there for a minute. But I just like the idea of going to the Mediterranean in general and not having to pack and unpack, just having my cruise like cabin with my balcony, even though I might fall off of it. But I feel like that would be a really cool way to see the Mediterranean and those like see European cities and stuff like that,
Yeah,
rather than having to pack and unpack all the time.
yeah. I've never been to Europe, so it's still on my list.
To be determined.
To be determined. And add us to your list on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, like, share, do all the fun things. Leave a comment if you can. And what else? Where can you find us? You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at The Forbidden Pod. And our
Vintage website.
I was looking for the word vintage website, theforbiddenpod.com. And send us an email. Let us know if you've fallen off of a cruise ship at hello@theforbiddenpod.com.
Yeah. Or have you seen anything crazy happen on a cruise ship before?
Have you pushed someone off of a cruise ship? Let
Have you
us know.
thought of it? I mean, I was on a cruise one time, and at the time I was really hating my ex-husband, which I did a lot. And I remember saying on that cruise to like my ex-brother-in-law, like, I wish he was on this cruise ship so you can fall off. Get rid of him. But I didn't. Never took him on a cruise. Would have been probably a better idea to have, because I could have ended up like this woman with 1.5 million, $1.5 million and living in Greenwich. I wouldn't be living in Greenwich, Connecticut, though. Sorry,
No.
Greenwich, it's not my style.
It's not me, it's you.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, well, Blake, thank you for listening to the story of.
Amanda, thank you for sharing that story.
Do you have hints?
I do.
Okay.
My hints for you for next week's episode are cruise, queen, and secret language.
Cruise, queen, and secret language.
Yep.
I got nothing.
It'll be fun.
All right. Yes. And listeners, as always, we thank
Thank you.
you.
Hit that stop button.
End recording now.